As we count down the days to Las Vegas, I'm connecting with speakers, sponsors, and industry experts to get a pulse on what we can expect to see at Enterprise Connect
Hey,
2026.
Justin, my name is Steve Leaden. I am president of Leaden Associates. And we are an independent consulting firm in the space, and we work for very large enterprises in a couple of different verticals, including higher education and city and state government, and a lot in healthcare these days, a lot. So CX is front and center to what we are doing. AI is front and center to what we are doing. We are providing great counsel to CIOs and CXOs, and it's a great time to be in this space. And thank you for having me on.
It's great to be with you, Steve. I agree with you. It is such a fun time to be in this space, and having those conversations with leaders across enterprises in all of these different roles is fascinating because you see people who are working on fundamentally the same problem from different perspectives that are converging together. That's one of the things I love about Enterprise Connect. It is one of those places where all of these different perspectives can come in the same room and move a dialogue forward to drive the outcomes that we all want to achieve. And I'm curious, in your role specifically, you've got to be hearing a lot of the things that are top of mind, that are the pressing issues as we look at the year ahead. What would you say is one thing that enterprise communication and CX leaders need to get right over the next, call it, 12 to 24 months?
So this sounds overly simple, believe it or not, but they have to get CX right in the flavor of AI. Okay, so I can tell you this, that just about everybody, every organization that we've ever worked with, they have some kind of IVR flow, right? You always have an introduction to any kind of contact center. So that's your first stop right there. And the challenge is that that's a great opportunity where you can transition and translate, if you will, IVR over into AI, into a true conversational experience. And I can tell you, on the most part, up until now, everybody has miserably failed. Miserably. Okay. I won't tell you who, but I was talking to a major multi-billion-dollar retailer just the other day. And it was basically saying, "Hi, this is AI. Please forgive me ahead of time. I'm still learning." Really? So obviously what you want to do is you want to have a hard ROI around AI, but you want to have a great experience. We're just moving at, I'll quote somebody from, Cognigy, now NICE, of course. He was stating that we are moving along the road with AI in cat years, not dog years, not regular years. So I had to look it up. And we have two cats, and cat years are 24 years and 24 months. And I went, yeah, that's exactly how AI feels, for sure, And it's dominating the conversation so much that in the world of Gen AI, according to some research that I had done, in the next 7 years, our industry will actually be less in terms of revenue, actually 10 times less than AI. So it will be a core component of what we are doing, going forward. But it's a very exciting time, but you got to do it right.
You do have to do it right. I am a big believer in progress over perfection. However, as we think about these deployments being employee-facing or customer-facing, we definitely need to set safe thresholds in terms of at what point do we experiment and iterate? When do we make it live and in production? And then once we do, the agility that teams need right now in terms of understanding, addressing, and improving these systems, I think is critical to that, Steve. To your point, a lot of the failure, or maybe we'll even say the delay of value, is that approach of, I'll say, traditional self-service, which in a lot of ways is set it and forget it. That simply doesn't work in the way that today's technology enables us to understand and serve others.
I think there is an expectation that I can speak to a live person, and why not speak to an AI bot that sounds like a live person and conduct that 3-minute or less call with a bot rather than a human being. And not to say that we are eliminating positions. That's not what we're doing. If anything, we're actually improving on the CX, right? So normally we'll see in the traditional world of contact center, we'll see the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of calls within 20 seconds, or a 3 to 4% abandoned call rate. Okay, so we did a study for a university a couple of years back, and the president said, I want a 100-0 answer rate. I want all calls picked up the first time by a live person, which was an extraordinary goal. But with AI, you can do it now, right? So it's very, very strong from that vantage point. And then from the third, the abandoned call rates, again, we can manage that. And I can tell you that doing a lot in healthcare these days, an abandoned call equals a lost patient. And patient dollars and revenue are huge. And you can equate that to any vertical for that matter. Yeah. Customer experience is front and center, and you never want to lose that customer, whether it be a patient or a customer in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. I always think of customer experience in terms of outcomes. What's the thing that we're trying to drive? And then how do we make sure we intentionally engineer our
Mhm.
systems, our processes, our people to get there? So spot on, understanding what causes all of the friction or failure points. We don't want to add one more. That none of us are in the business of that, Steve. You mentioned that you'll be speaking at the conference, and I do want to shift my last few questions around
Sure.
some of the broader topics and trends that I know you'll be talking on, but I also know they're front and center for so many leaders right now. Here's where I want to start. In your work, I know that you are getting kind of a front row seat to enterprise leaders who have real AI wins under their belt. They also have some real scars from their early lessons.
Mhm.
What do you see as the thing that's separating the organizations who are making progress from those that are stalling out, maybe even as they're getting to a pilot phase?
Well, you really have to consider AI as an operating model change. It's not just a tech change. Okay. It's a fundamental change on how you run your organization. Okay. And there's a lot of checks and balances that go behind that. But, it's very interesting. I met with a sales group from one of the vendors a couple of weeks ago. And the thing that I heard in the meeting was the fact that a lot of organizations are funding AI. But it's like, what do we do? What kinds of projects, what kinds of applications can we leverage with AI? The IT leadership, there's so many that are out there. Which one do you prioritize first? And I could tell you the ones that have a direct impact on your bottom line, which are CX driven, okay, customer experience driven, are the ones that you should go after first, of course. So yeah, we're seeing the fact that, not only is funding available, but the idea of rushing to do it in a matter of weeks or, because the deadline is being given by upper management rather than a systematic approach to deploying it correctly. So I've always seen that if you don't have, if you're not doing an assessment properly, a discovery process properly, if you're not doing a vetting process around the vendors, and that can be via an RFP or something less formal, but you have to do demos of these various vendors. You have to have a best practices project plan and implementation around this stuff, including user acceptance testing, including a test bed group that you can vet out, things along those lines with. If you don't do those basics, you could fail miserably. In fact, our colleagues at Gartner Group have quoted that 60% of all AI implementations in 2026 will fail. And the reason why is because we're rushing to deploy it rather than thinking outside the box and thinking in terms of a traditional operations implementation. And the challenge that most IT leaders have, including those that we support, is that executive management wants it done very quickly. Or let's say we're from New York, so we'll say yesterday. Like, how come it's not already implemented? So the challenge is you have to, create a runway and explain to them that if you do it right, it could be game changing for your organization. If we do it wrong, we have to go back to the drawing board and find another vendor or find another application that will best suit us. And in the meantime, we will have spent potentially thousands, if not millions, just deploying the first one. So let's do it right the first time. And as they say in the contracting business, right, measure twice, cut once, so to speak.
Absolutely. I'm curious. So, what you've described, is just a fundamental rewiring in how we maybe think about the deployment of technology. It's not just about replacing one system for another. There's, a different way of thinking. There's different processes, right? A rewiring of sorts that needs
Mhm.
to occur at every level of the organization. And when you look across different implementations that you've gotten to see, where do you see leaders most often misjudge what it takes to earn buy-in from both executives as well as the frontline teams who are using or affected by these tools?
Yeah, I would say the idea of preparation is the most important thing. And planning is the most important thing, and really looking for areas that you can, again, with AI, you can definitely look at ROI, return on investment, which is huge. In fact, with one client that we're working for, healthcare right now, We expect to save them $3 million annually, including all the deployment costs, et cetera. But we took it a step further and said, let's improve on the SLAs as well. So let's look at shortening the 80/20 rule and the abandoned call rates. Let's get that closer to 100%. And by doing that, we're still saving over $1 million a year, but it's a much better patient experience. And the longevity of having patients for life, which is always what you want in healthcare, is again, closer to succeeding, along those lines. So, kind of back to my earlier answer before, I think there's just an expectation that we can get this done yesterday. And, you really have to create some runway for test bedding, implementation, and doing it right from scratch so that, again, it's deployed right. And interestingly, we're also at this cusp, Justin, where different models or different vendors have different levels of maturity on the voice models themselves, LLMs, if you will. So where is that, and which one sounds most human, and which one has the best interface to the CRM system that they're interfacing to? So there's a lot going on, and it's complex, and we have to state that upfront to executive management. Just be patient, because if we do this right the first time, you will not only succeed with AI, but you will actually be ahead of your competitors, which is exactly where you always want to be, especially in an AI market, which is this new tech that's just riding a huge wave for all of us. So
Yeah. So as leaders are thinking about that plan to be intentional and deliberate about how they're deploying it, how they're rolling it out, what are some of the things that you think they're maybe building into their roadmap right now that are going to age poorly in terms of assumptions they're making, call it over the next 3 years and beyond?
yeah. So interestingly, you have to be adaptable, right? Again, as AI moves forward, you and I have been involved, with Enterprise Connect and ICMI and others, for several years now. And, we've seen AI just in the last, 2 years go from something that was a thought, especially when ChatGPT started getting national recognition. Okay. And now I talk to electricians, and everybody's building data centers everywhere now in the US and abroad. Okay. Because they have to be ready for AI. And so there's this maturing cycle. And, we're way beyond even this hype cycle, I think. We're at this maturity model where people are adapting and people are implementing. They have to in order to at least stay alive. But again, you have to do it right. So I would say that from a long-term strategy point of view, you really have to be adaptable. You have to have, rather than rigid decisions, again, looking at competitors and emerging vendors and market shifts that will actually change how your specific vertical will adapt. So let's not look at just your competitors. Let's not just look at the vendor scheme, but how can you fundamentally shift where you can become a leader in your own vertical? Are very different needs, and there are very different solutions to different verticals, for sure.
Yeah, Steve, one of the things I said to a leader recently is if done right, the decisions they're making in this moment could absolutely be career defining for them. There
Totally.
is an opportunity for people to show the way, for people to become the example that then in the years ahead, we're looking to how they thought, how they operated, the trade-offs they were willing to make or not. It
Uh-huh.
is going back to fun and exciting. I mean, this is one of those times where so much is being learned, and I love this stuff. I
I do.
love
I
to
do
see this.
too. I really do. Yeah, I agree. It's
I've
great
got
stuff.
I've got one last question for you.
Sure.
So, in addition to your day job, you are also president of the Society of Communications Technology Consultants.
Consultants, correct.
This is an awesome group of people who are getting to see a lot of things play out across organizations globally. When you think about that collective knowledge, what do you see in terms of places where enterprises are cutting corners, whether it's with AI or just communications decisions in generals? And what are some of the long-term costs that organizations are bearing today that maybe they shouldn't have to if they did something a little bit differently?
Yeah, it goes back to that little contracting statement earlier, like measure twice, cut once. You want to overly plan for this stuff. You want to make sure that your first deployment goes right. We've already seen this with UCAS, CCAS, that, well, someone's going to take care of my infrastructure, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to look at the vendor who provides the best feature function for my organization. Well, if you haven't vetted the vendor properly, okay, and we've had, a couple of major outages in the last 24 months, okay, that have been worldwide affecting. I won't name any vendors at the moment, but the bottom line being that, yeah, you have to look at features and functions. You have to look at reliability, and you also have to look at those third-party partners that deliver on features that particularly that UCAS or CCAS vendor doesn't deliver on. So what I'm sharing is here, don't make the wrong decision the first time. So, if you do, you'll find that you'll have to come up with reasons or contract reasons for cause to get out of that contract, and then to move on to another vendor, and then to start the process all over again. Now, in the consulting world, would we love to have two projects? Sure, but that doesn't serve the client. So it doesn't, and that's not the way we think anyway. So, we're a bunch of tech heads, so to speak, in our space. We really think outside the box. We really are an extension of our staff in terms of the SCTC and our group, Leaden Associates. I used to work for the end user community, and I hated consultants because I thought they were going to take my job. No, if anything, we help you get promoted. So we just have to look at it, that way. So anyway, if you do it once right, you don't have to replace it the second time, which is, a big deal. So the association itself is we have two groups. We've got consultants and vendors. And just to be clear, we are independent consultants, meaning that we actually are fee-based. We have ROI on our projects, okay, but we get paid by our clients up front. We are not agents. We do not resell for anybody. And what makes that very interesting is the fact that there's no conflict of interest that we have, unlike agents that are in our space. So, from my perspective, just to kind of close it out here, Justin, the next, competitive divide, I'll just read something here, will not be between companies that use AI and those that don't. It will be between those who implement it strategically and for those who don't chase it reactively, so to speak. So a couple of quick funnies here. If your AI still feels like IVR, and you didn't transform, you just automated frustration. That's all you did. Number two, AI is not a technology project. It's an operational rewrite, which we had shared a little bit earlier. And so it's a great time to be in this space. It's very, very exciting. There's a lot of momentum around AI. In fact, everybody has to invest in AI today in order just to be relevant. But you got to spend the money wisely and appropriately that has the best use for your customers and for your own organization at large. Okay. And it's a key period in time where competitiveness could either make or break you, and your organization going forward. And implementing AI for the sake of AI is just not a good decision. It's got to be strategic, right?
Yeah. Cheers to that, Steve. This is the conversation that's going to be happening at Enterprise Connect. I look forward to your session, to being together with you. A number of other SCTC members are also presenters and on site. So this is a great opportunity for people who are struggling with the moment in time that we find ourselves in. How do we make sure that we make the right decisions that move our organizations forward in a meaningful way? And to your point, Steve, that we're only having to cut once and don't find that this is something that repeats itself time and time again. I'm excited to see you in Las Vegas. Steve, thank you so much for spending your time and perspective with me today.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.